The alarm lights flashed red across the control room of Nexus 7. Commander. Zethkar moved his 6 arms quickly over the control panels, his blue skin turning darker with worry. The monitoring station floated in empty space, watching over the Kepler 442 system like a guard dog. For 50 years, it had been the most boring job in the Galactic Empire. Nothing ever happened here. Commander, we have a problem, called out Technician Yilmar from across the room. His voice shook as he stared at his screen. Something big is coming toward the system. The energy readings are ... impossible. Zethkar walked over on his 4 legs, his large eyes focusing on the display. The numbers made no sense. Whatever was approaching had an energy signature that matched an Imperial dreadnought, but that was impossible. Nothing that powerful should exist in this empty part of space. Run the scan again, Zethkar ordered. The sensors must be broken. The scan ran 3 more times. Each time, the results were the same. Something massive was heading straight for Kepler 442b, the planet where the primitive humans lived. According to Imperial records, humans had barely figured out how to travel between planets in their own solar system. They still used chemical, rockets and nuclear power. They should not have ships capable of faster-than-light travel for at least 300 years. Contact Admiral Korath immediately, Zethkar said, his voice tight with fear. Tell him we have an unknown vessel approaching human space. Tell him it might be hostile. Far away, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Liberty's Edge, looking out at the stars through the main window. The ship had been traveling for 18 months, and he was tired. The crew was tired too. They had volunteered for this mission to explore a new world, hoping to find a place where humans could build a second home. Captain, we're about to drop out of quantum drive, announced engineer Tony Rodriguez from his station. Tony was a smart man who had helped design the ship's new engine system. The quantum drive was humanity's greatest invention, allowing them to cross vast distances in space much faster than anyone had dreamed possible. Good work, Tony, Jake said. Dr. Campbell, are you ready to scan the planet? Dr. Lisa Campbell looked up from her computer. She was the mission's lead scientist, and her job was to study any planets they found. All systems are ready, Captain. I can't wait to see what's waiting for us. Kate Sullivan, the communications officer, checked her equipment one more time. Her job was to send messages back to Earth and listen for any signals from space. So far, they had heard nothing but silence during their long journey. Humans believed they were alone in the universe. Dropping out of quantum drive in 3, 2, 1, Tony called out. The Liberty's Edge shuddered as it returned to normal space. Through the windows, the crew could see a yellow star with several planets orbiting around it. The second planet looked blue and green, just like Earth. It was beautiful. Beginning planetary scans now, Dr. Campbell said, her fingers dancing over her controls. The atmosphere looks perfect for human life. We might have found our new home. But something was wrong. Kate Sullivan's equipment started beeping loudly. Captain, I'm picking up artificial signals. Strong ones. They're coming from ... everywhere. Jake felt his heart skip a beat. What kind of signals? Technology signatures? Ships, Captain. Lots of them, and they're not human. On Nexus 7, Technician Yilmar screamed. The unknown ship had appeared right in front of their sensors, as if it had materialized out of nothing. It was huge, larger than many Imperial cruisers, and its design was completely alien. The hull was smooth and white, with blue markings that formed patterns no Imperial engineer had ever seen. What is that thing? Zethkar whispered. The computer. Says it's made of materials we don't recognize, Yilmar reported. The power signature is incredible. Commander, this ship could destroy our entire station with one shot. Zethkar activated the emergency beacon. Within minutes, Admiral Korath would receive the message and bring a fleet to investigate. But minutes might be too long. If this unknown ship was hostile, Nexus 7 and everyone on it could be dead before help arrived. On the Liberty's Edge, panic was spreading through the crew. Dr. Campbell's scans had revealed dozens of artificial structures throughout the system. Space stations, orbital platforms, and ships that definitely did not come from Earth. Captain, I'm detecting weapon signatures, Tony reported, his voice shaking. Multiple vessels are moving toward our position. Their technology is far beyond anything we have. Jake made a quick decision. Red alert. All hands to battle stations. Kate, try to contact them. Maybe we can talk our way out of this. Kate worked frantically at her station, sending out messages in every language she knew. She broadcast mathematical sequences, music, and even pictures of Earth, hoping that some universal language might work. But the alien ships kept getting closer. Captain, their weapons are targeting us, Tony announced. Our defensive systems are activating automatically. The Liberty's Edge had been built with the best defenses human engineers could design. Tony had personally worked on many of the systems, using new theories about energy shields and armor plating. But they had been designed to protect against asteroids and cosmic radiation. Not alien weapons. Commander Zethkar watched in amazement as the human ship's defenses came online. Energy shields flickered around the vessel, and weapon ports opened along its hull. But the weapons that emerged were unlike anything in Imperial databases. They seemed to use principles that Imperial science had never explored. Technician, analyze those weapons, Zethkar ordered. I can't, Commander. The computer doesn't recognize the technology. It's like they approached the problem from a completely different angle than we did. More Imperial ships arrived, surrounding the human vessel. Admiral Korath's flagship, the Iron Fist, was among them. The Admiral was a veteran of many battles, and he had never seen anything like the ship that floated before him. This is Admiral Korath of the Galactic Empire, he broadcast on all frequencies. Unknown vessel, you have entered restricted space. Identify yourself immediately or face destruction. On the Liberty's Edge, Kate finally managed to decode part of the alien transmission. The universal translator that Dr. Campbell had built was working, but slowly. The message that came through was fragmented and threatening. Captain, I think they're telling us to surrender, Kate reported. But I'm not sure. Their language is so different from anything human. Jake looked at his crew. They were all depending on him to keep them safe. The ship they had built to explore new worlds was now surrounded by alien warships, and nobody knew what to do. Keep trying to communicate, Kate, Tony. Keep our defenses ready, but don't fire unless they fire first. Dr. Campbell, scan everything you can. We need to understand what we're dealing with. Captain, Dr. Campbell said quietly, based on what I'm seeing, these aliens have been traveling between stars for thousands of years. Their technology is incredibly advanced, but but what? Some of our systems are actually more efficient than theirs. It's like we solved the same problems in completely different ways. Jake stared out at the alien fleet. Humanity had always dreamed of finding other intelligent life in the universe. They had imagined peaceful contact, sharing knowledge and culture with new friends among the stars. Instead, they had stumbled into what looked like a military confrontation with an empire that had ruled space for millennia. The Liberty's Edge hung in space, surrounded by ships that could destroy it with ease. But the human crew was not ready to give up. They had come too far and dreamed too long to surrender without a fight. In the distance, more alien ships were arriving. The situation was about to get much worse. Admiral Korath paced back and forth on the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Fist. His clawed feet clicked against the metal floor as he studied the strange human ship on the main screen. In 40 years of military service, he had never encountered anything like it. The vessel looked peaceful enough, but its energy readings suggested weapons that could tear through Imperial armor like paper. Admiral, the human ship is scanning us, reported his tactical officer. Their sensors are incredibly detailed. They're learning about our technology faster than our computers can block them. Korath's red eyes narrowed. No species had ever been able to penetrate Imperial security systems so easily. Either these humans were far more advanced than their records suggested, or they were using scanning methods the Empire had never encountered. Launch boarding shuttles, Korath ordered. We need to know what we're dealing with. If they resist, we'll consider it an act of war. On the Liberty's Edge, Dr. Campbell watched her screens with growing excitement and fear. The alien ships were amazing, using technology based on principles she had only dreamed about. But there was something strange about their designs. They seemed to follow very rigid patterns, as if their builders could only think in one specific way. "Captain, I'm detecting small ships launching from the alien fleet," Tony announced. "They're heading straight for us." Jake Morrison felt sweat on his forehead. The situation was spiraling out of control, and he didn't know how to stop it. "Are they armed?" "Yes, sir." "But they look like transport ships, not fighters. I think they want to board us." Kate Sullivan looked up from her communication station. She had been working for hours to understand the alien language, and she was finally making progress. "Captain, I'm starting to understand their transmissions. They think we're some kind of advanced scout ship for a hostile empire. They believe we're here to attack them." "That's crazy," Jake said. "We're explorers, not soldiers." "Try telling them that," Kate replied. "Their translator is having just as much trouble with our language as ours is with theirs." The first alien boarding shuttle approached the Liberty's edge. Tony watched it come closer and felt his heart racing. The ship's automatic defense systems were designed to protect against space debris and radiation, but they could also be used against unwanted visitors. "Captain, should I let them dock?" Tony asked. Jake thought quickly. If he refused, the aliens might think they were hostile. But if he allowed armed soldiers onto his ship, his crew could be in danger. "Let them approach, but activate all security measures. If they try anything aggressive, stop them." The alien shuttle attached itself to the Liberty's edge with a loud clang. Within minutes, the boarding party was trying to cut through the ship's hull. But Tony's defensive systems activated automatically, sending electromagnetic pulses through the hull that disabled the aliens' cutting tools. "Commander Vexville of the Imperial Marines cursed as his plasma cutter stopped working. His team of 6 soldiers was supposed to be the best in the fleet, trained to board any kind of ship, but the human vessels seemed to predict their every move." "Sir, our equipment keeps failing," reported Sergeant Kilwin. "Every time we try to cut through their hull, something interferes with our tools." Vexville had never encountered anything like it. Imperial boarding procedures had worked the same way for thousands of years. No species had ever found ways to counter them so effectively. Try the backup systems, but the backup systems failed too. The human ship's defenses seemed to adapt to each new attempt, finding ways to disable Imperial technology that should have been impossible to stop. After 2 hours of trying, Vexville was forced to report his failure to Admiral Korath on the Liberty's edge. Tony watched the alien boarding attempt with amazement. The ship's computer systems were learning from each attack, developing countermeasures in real time. The artificial intelligence he had designed was working better than he had ever hoped. "Dr. Campbell, are you seeing this?" Tony called out. "Our systems are analyzing their technology and finding weaknesses faster than they can adapt." Dr. Campbell nodded, studying the data on her screens. "Their technology is incredibly advanced, but it's also very predictable. It's like they've been building the same types of systems for so long that they can't imagine doing things differently." Meanwhile, Kate Sullivan was making a breakthrough with the alien language. She had discovered that the aliens used mathematical concepts very differently than humans did. By focusing on basic numbers and simple equations, she was slowly building a vocabulary that both species could understand. "Captain, I think I can talk to them," Kate announced. "It's not perfect, but I can send basic messages." Jake felt a surge of hope. "Try to tell them we're peaceful. Make them understand we're not here to fight." Kate began transmitting a series of mathematical sequences, followed by simple images and concepts. She sent pictures of Earth, showing it as a peaceful planet with no weapons pointed at space. She transmitted the periodic table of elements, demonstrating human scientific knowledge without revealing military secrets on the Iron Fist. Admiral Korath studied the human transmissions with his science officer, Dr. Mordag. The messages were clearly intelligent, but their content was puzzling. "Admiral, they're claiming to be explorers from a single planet," Dr. Mordag reported. "They say they've never encountered other intelligent life before." Korath laughed bitterly. "Impossible. No single planet could develop technology this advanced. They must be lying. But Dr. Mordag was not so sure. The mathematical concepts in the human messages were elegant and sophisticated, but they approached problems from angles that imperial science had never considered. It was as if the humans had developed an entirely different branch of mathematics. "Admiral, what if they're telling the truth?" Dr. Mordag asked quietly. What if they really are from just one world? The idea was terrifying. If a single planet could produce technology that rivaled the Empire's greatest achievements, what would happen when they learned about the vast resources and knowledge available in galactic civilization? Back on the Liberty's edge, tensions were rising among the crew. They had been at red alert for hours, and everyone was tired and scared. Dr. Campbell continued her scans of the alien fleet, learning more about their technology with each passing minute. "Captain, I'm detecting something interesting," Dr. Campbell announced. "These aliens have amazing technology, but they seem to lack creativity. All their ships follow the same basic designs. All their weapons work on the same principles. It's like they stopped innovating centuries ago?" Tony nodded in agreement. "That would explain why our defenses are working so well. We approach problems differently than they do." Jake was beginning to understand the situation better. The aliens weren't necessarily hostile, but they were afraid. They had encountered something they didn't understand, and their response was to treat it as a threat. "Kate, can you send them a message asking for a peaceful meeting?" Jake asked. "Maybe if we can talk face-to-face, we can work this out." Kate worked carefully, constructing a message using the mathematical language she had developed. She sent coordinates for a neutral location between the two fleets, along with images showing humans and aliens talking peacefully. The response came quickly. Admiral Korath agreed to a meeting, but only if the humans would allow Imperial inspectors aboard their ship first. It was a reasonable request from a military perspective, but Jake knew his crew would never agree to it. "Send back a counter-proposal," Jake ordered. "Suggest that we each send one person to meet on neutral ground. No weapons, no soldiers, just representatives talking." The negotiation continued for hours. Each side proposed terms that the other found unacceptable. The aliens wanted guarantees that the humans weren't planning an attack. The humans wanted assurances that they would be allowed to leave peacefully if talks failed. As the debate continued, more Imperial ships arrived in the system. The fleet surrounding the Liberty's edge grew larger and more threatening. Dr. Campbell counted over 50 alien vessels, each one capable of destroying the human ship with ease. But something unexpected was happening among the Imperial crew. The young linguist who had been studying human transmissions, Yuthara, was becoming fascinated by human communication methods. She had never encountered a language that combined logical concepts with emotional expressions so effectively. "Commander," Zethkar, Yuthara said quietly, "I think we're making a mistake. These humans aren't acting like conquerors. They're acting like explorers who stumbled into something they don't understand." Zethkar studied the human ship through his sensors. It was still maintaining defensive positions, but it hadn't made any aggressive moves despite being outnumbered 50-1. Perhaps the young linguist was right. The standoff continued as both sides tried to find a way forward. The humans wanted to explore and learn. The aliens wanted to protect their empire from a potential threat. Neither side understood that they were both afraid of the same thing, the unknown future that first contact would bring. Deep in the heart of the Galactic Empire, on the capital world of Zentharian Prime, emergency alarms rang through the halls of the Supreme Council. Supreme Chancellor Vexton rushed to the council chamber, his 8 tentacles moving quickly across the polished floor. In 3,000 years of imperial rule, an emergency session had only been called 12 times. This was the 13th. "Report," Vexton commanded as he took his place at the center of the massive circular room. Around him, representatives from 40 different alien species waited for answers. General Korthax, head of Imperial Military Command, stepped forward. His massive frame cast shadows across the floor as he spoke. Supreme Chancellor, we have encountered an unknown species in the Kepler 442 system. They possess technology that should not exist. The council chamber erupted in confused voices. Counselor Yilseth, representing the ancient ethereal race, raised her glowing form above the others. Impossible. Our scouts have mapped every intelligent species in this galaxy. No one could have developed advanced technology without our knowledge. General Corthax activated a holographic display that showed the Liberty's Edge surrounded by Imperial ships. This vessel appeared using faster-than-light technology that our scientists cannot explain. Its defensive systems have successfully resisted all boarding attempts. Most concerning, its energy signature suggests weapons capability that rivals our dreadnoughts. The room fell silent. Supreme Chancellor Vexton studied the image with growing alarm. The human ship looked peaceful enough, but appearances could be deceiving. What do we know about this species? They call themselves humans, General Corthax continued. According to our records, they evolved on a single planet called Earth. 50 years ago, they barely had chemical rockets. Now they have quantum drive technology that might be superior to our own. Counselor Mushtar, the Empire's chief scientist, stepped forward. Supreme Chancellor, this is scientifically impossible. No species develops technology that quickly. Either our records are wrong, or these humans have help from an unknown source. Meanwhile, on Earth, the discovery of alien life had turned the world upside down. President Helen Carter sat in an emergency meeting with world leaders, military, commanders, and scientists. The news that humanity was not alone in the universe had spread quickly, and panic was beginning to set in. General Henderson, what's our military situation? President Carter asked. General Paul Henderson looked tired. He had been awake for 36 hours straight, coordinating Earth's response to first contact. Madam President, we're completely outmatched. The reports from the Liberty's Edge show at least 50 alien ships in the area. Each one appears to be more advanced than anything we have. Dr. Rachel Morgan, Earth's leading physicist, spoke up from her seat at the table. But that's not the whole story. The data we're receiving from Dr. Campbell suggests that our technology isn't as primitive as the aliens think. We've approached scientific problems from completely different angles than they have. President Carter frowned. What do you mean? Think of it like this, Dr. Morgan explained. Imagine two people trying to climb a mountain. One person takes the well-worn path that everyone has used for thousands of years. The other person finds a new route that no one has ever tried. Both reach the top, but they get there in completely different ways. And we're the person who found the new route? Exactly. The aliens have had thousands of years to perfect their technology along certain lines. But we've only had decades, so we had to be creative. We've discovered solutions that they never considered. Back on the Liberty's Edge, Dr. Campbell was making discoveries that would change everything. Her continued scans of the alien fleet had revealed something incredible. The Imperial ships were indeed incredibly advanced, but they all followed the same basic design principles. It was as if their builders had found one way to solve problems and never looked for alternatives. Captain, you need to see this, Dr. Campbell called out excitedly. I've been analyzing their power systems, and I think I understand something important. Jake Morrison walked over to her station. The stress of the standoff was wearing on everyone, but Dr. Campbell seemed energized by her discoveries. What have you found? Their power generation is based on controlled fusion reactions, just like ours. But they use a completely different approach to containment and energy conversion. Their method is very stable and reliable, but it's also inefficient compared to what we do. Tony Rodriguez joined the conversation. How inefficient? Their ships need to be 3 times larger than ours to generate the same amount of power. Dr. Campbell explained. That's why they're so surprised by our energy readings? The Liberty's Edge puts out as much power as their heavy cruisers, but we're a fraction of the size. Kate Sullivan looked up from her communication station with excitement. Captain, I've made a breakthrough. I think I can have a real conversation with them now. Over the past day, Kate had been working with the Imperial linguist Yathara to develop a more complete translation system. The two of them had discovered that mathematics could serve as a bridge between their languages, allowing them to communicate. Complex ideas. What kind of conversation? Jake asked. Real diplomacy. I can explain our mission, our technology, even our culture, and I can understand their responses well enough to have meaningful exchanges. Jake felt a spark of hope. Contact. Their commander. Tell him we want to talk. The first real conversation between humans and the Galactic Empire took place over subspace radio, with Kate Sullivan and Admiral Korath speaking through their translation systems. The discussion was slow and careful, with each side trying to understand not just the words, but the meaning behind them. We are explorers, Kate transmitted. We came to this system to study the planet, not to fight or conquer. Our species has never encountered other intelligent life before. Admiral Korath's response came back confused and suspicious. How can one world develop such advanced technology without help? Your ship is more efficient than our best designs. Kate struggled to find words that would translate properly. We had to be creative. We didn't know how things were supposed to work, so we tried new ways. On the Iron Fist, Admiral Korath discussed the conversation with his science officer, Dr. Mordag. The human explanations were starting to make sense, but they were also deeply troubling. Admiral, if they're telling the truth, these humans represent something we've never encountered, Dr. Mordag said. A species that develops technology through pure innovation rather than building on existing knowledge. What does that mean for the Empire? Dr. Mordag hesitated before answering. It means they might be able to solve problems that we've been struggling with for centuries. But it also means they could advance beyond us very quickly if they gain access to our knowledge base. The conversation between Kate and Admiral Korath continued for hours. Slowly, each side began to understand the other's perspective. The humans were indeed explorers, not conquerors. But they were also something unprecedented in galactic history. A species that had developed advanced technology entirely on their own. Back on Xantharium Prime, Supreme Chancellor Vexton received hourly reports from Admiral Korath. Each update made the situation more complex. The humans appeared peaceful, but their technological potential was staggering. Counselors, we face an unprecedented decision, Vexton announced to the assembled representatives. Imperial law requires us to either integrate or eliminate any spacefaring species that could threaten galactic stability. But these humans present unique challenges. Counselor Yilseth spoke for many when she asked, "What kind of challenges? If we try to eliminate them, we might be destroying the most innovative species the galaxy has ever produced. If we try to integrate them, we risk them advancing beyond our ability to control." General Korthax presented the military perspective. Supreme Chancellor, our analysis suggests that human creativity combined with imperial resources could revolutionize galactic technology. But it could also lead to the development of weapons that might threaten the Empire itself. The debate in the council chamber grew heated. Some species wanted to destroy the humans before they could become a threat. Others argued that humanity's potential was too valuable to waste. A few suggested keeping the humans isolated until the Empire could better understand their capabilities. While the Empire debated humanity's fate, Dr. Campbell made another discovery. She had been studying the Imperial communication systems and realized something amazing. The aliens had developed incredibly sophisticated technology, but they had done it in the most complicated way possible. "It's like they're using a sledgehammer to crack an egg," she explained to Captain Morrison. "Their solutions work, but they're incredibly complex and resource-intensive." "Could we do it better?" Jake asked. "I think we already are. Our communication system is doing things their engineers probably thought were impossible." As the standoff continued, both sides began to realize that first contact had changed everything. The humans had discovered they were not alone in the universe, and the galaxy was far more crowded and complex than they had ever imagined. The Empire had encountered a species that challenged everything they thought they knew about technological development. 3 days after first contact, Something remarkable happened aboard the research station that Admiral Korath had set up near the Liberty's Edge. Dr. Campbell and the Imperial scientist, Dr. Mordag, had been working together through video communications, sharing basic scientific principles and comparing their approaches to common problems. Dr. Campbell stared at her screen in amazement as Dr. Mordag explained the Imperial method for faster-than-light communication. The alien approach was incredibly sophisticated, using quantum entanglement across multiple dimensions, but it required enormous amounts of energy and massive equipment. Dr. Mordag, what if I told you there was a simpler way? Dr. Campbell asked. Through the translation system, the alien scientist's compound eyes focused on the screen. Simpler how? We have been perfecting this technology for 2,000 years. Dr. Campbell began drawing diagrams on her tablet, showing a completely different approach to the same problem. Instead of trying to control quantum entanglement directly, she suggested using resonance patterns that would require far less energy. Dr. Mordag studied the drawings for a long time. According to Imperial science, Dr. Campbell's approach should not work, but as he ran the calculations, he realized that the human was right. Her method would be not only simpler but also more efficient. This is impossible, Dr. Mordag whispered. You have found a solution that our greatest minds never considered. Maybe that's because your greatest minds all think the same way, Dr. Campbell suggested gently. Sometimes an outside perspective can see things that experts miss. Within 72 hours, their collaboration had produced 3 major breakthroughs. They developed a new communication system that was 10 times faster than anything the Empire had ever built. They created a power generation method that was 30% more efficient than existing Imperial technology. Most importantly, they designed a scanning system that could analyze unknown materials in ways that neither species had thought possible. Captain Morrison watched these developments with growing hope and concern. The scientific cooperation was amazing, but it was also changing the political situation in dangerous ways. Every breakthrough made humanity more valuable to the Empire, but it also made them more threatening. Captain, we're receiving a priority message from Earth, Kate Sullivan announced from her communication station. The message was from President Carter herself. Earth's governments had been watching the situation carefully, and they were deeply worried about humanity's future. The recordings from the Liberty's Edge showed that the aliens had vast military power and thousands of years of experience in dealing with other species. Captain Morrison, you are authorized to negotiate on behalf of all humanity, President Carter's message said. But remember that whatever agreements you make will affect our entire species for generations to come. Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Morgan was leading a team of scientists in analyzing every piece of data that came from the first contact. What they discovered was both exciting and terrifying. The alien technology was incredibly advanced, but it was also strangely limited in its scope. It's like they learned one way to do everything and then stopped looking for alternatives, Dr. Morgan explained to her team. They perfected their methods over thousands of years, but they never questioned whether there might be better ways. General Henderson studied the military implications of the data. The Imperial ships were powerful, but they were also predictable. Their weapons, shields, and tactics all followed the same basic patterns that had been used for centuries. If we ever had to fight them, we might have a chance, General Henderson reported to President Carter. Not because we're stronger, but because we think differently. They wouldn't know how to respond to tactics they've never seen before. But President Carter hoped it would never come to war. The potential for cooperation was enormous. If both species could learn to trust each other, back in the Kepler 442 system, the situation was changing rapidly. Admiral Korath found himself in an impossible position. His orders were to determine whether the humans were a threat to the Empire. But every day of interaction made that question more complicated. Admiral, we have a problem, his tactical officer reported. Imperial Command is sending additional fleets to this system. They want to be prepared for any possibility. Korath understood the concern. If the humans were hostile, a single fleet might not be enough to stop them. But if they were peaceful, the arrival of more military ships would send the wrong message entirely. How many ships are coming? Korath asked. 3 full battle fleets, sir. Over 200 vessels. They'll arrive within the week. On the Liberties. Edge, Tony Rodriguez was having the time of his life. The Imperial engineers had shared some of their basic principles, and Tony was finding ways to improve on them that amazed both sides. His modifications to the ship's defensive systems had increased their effectiveness by 40% in just 2 days. Dr. Campbell, look at this, Tony called out excitedly. I figured out how to combine our shield technology with their energy. Distribution methods. The result is something neither of us could have built alone. Dr. Campbell studied Tony's work with growing excitement. The hybrid technology was elegant and powerful, representing the best of both human creativity and Imperial knowledge. But it also represented something else. Proof that cooperation between the species could benefit everyone. Lieutenant Carl Peters, the youngest officer on the Liberty's Edge, was working with Imperial engineers on a completely different problem. The aliens had been struggling for decades with a navigation issue that affected long-range exploration. Their computers could calculate hyperspace routes accurately, but only by using enormous amounts of processing power. Carl looked at their system and scratched his head. Why don't you just approximate the calculations instead of trying to be perfectly accurate? He suggested. The Imperial engineers stared at him in confusion. Approximate? But that would introduce errors. Small errors that you could correct along the way, Carl explained. You'd use 90% less computing power and get to the same destination just as safely. It was such a simple suggestion that the Imperial engineers had never considered. They had been trained to seek perfect solutions, not efficient ones. But Carl's approach worked beautifully, cutting navigation time in half while actually improving safety. Word of these breakthroughs spread quickly through both fleets. Imperial officers who had been suspicious of human technology began to see its potential. Human crew members who had been intimidated by alien science realized that they had contributions to make, but the most important development was happening in the ongoing negotiations between Captain Morrison and Admiral Korath. The 2 military officers had found common ground in their shared responsibility for their crew's safety. Admiral, I want to propose something, Captain Morrison said during one of their daily communications. What if we established a joint research station? A place where our scientists could work together safely while our governments decide what to do next. Admiral Korath considered the suggestion carefully. It would keep the humans close enough to monitor while allowing both sides to benefit from cooperation. Where would you build such a station? Right here, in orbit around Kepler 442b, the planet could serve as neutral ground, and both our ships could provide security. The proposal made sense from a military perspective, but Admiral Korath knew it would be controversial with Imperial command. Working openly with an unknown species violated standard first contact protocols. I will need to consult with my superiors, Admiral Korath replied. But personally, I think your suggestion has merit. The communication was interrupted by an urgent message from Commander Zethkar on the monitoring station. Admiral, we're detecting massive hyperspace signatures approaching the system. It looks like the reinforcement fleets are arriving early. Admiral Korath felt his heart sink. The arrival of additional Imperial forces would completely change the dynamic of the first contact situation. The humans would see it as a threat, and any trust that had been building would be destroyed. Captain Morrison, I need to warn you about something, Admiral Korath said quickly. More Imperial ships are about to arrive. Please understand that this is not an act of aggression. My government is simply being cautious. On the Liberties. Edge. Captain Morrison watched as hyperspace tiers began opening throughout the system. Massive Imperial warships emerged from the tiers, their weapons and shields already active. Within minutes, the human exploration vessel was surrounded by over 200 alien warships. Captain, they have enough firepower to destroy entire planets, Tony reported, his voice tight with fear. Dr. Campbell studied the readings from the new arrivals with scientific fascination despite the danger. These ships are different from the first group. They're larger, more heavily armed, and they're broadcasting on military frequencies. Kate Sullivan intercepted some of the Imperial communications and her face went pale. Captain, they're discussing something called Protocol 7. I don't know what that means, but it sounds serious. Captain Morrison realized that the first contact situation had just become much more complicated. The scientific cooperation and growing trust between the two species might not be enough to prevent a military confrontation. Admiral Korath stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching as Fleet Commander Gaxler-S massive dreadnought took position at the center of the Imperial formation. The Iron Fist suddenly felt very small compared to the new arrivals. Gaxler was known throughout the Empire as a military genius who had never lost a battle. He was also known for solving problems with overwhelming force. Admiral Korath, report to my ship immediately, came the order from Fleet Commander Gaxler. His voice carried the authority of someone who had conquered entire star systems. Korath looked at the Liberty's edge one more time before leaving. His bridge. The human ship looked so small and fragile, surrounded by 200 Imperial warships. In a few hours, it might be nothing but space dust on the Liberty's edge. Captain Morrison called an emergency meeting with his senior staff. The mood in the conference room was tense as everyone tried to understand what was happening. Dr. Campbell, what can you tell us about these new ships? Morrison asked. Dr. Campbell pulled up her scanner readings on the main screen. They're much more powerful than the first group. Some of these vessels are over 2 kilometers long and carry enough weapons to destroy moons. But there's something else, Captain. These ships are old designs, maybe hundreds of years old. They're using the same rigid technology patterns we've seen before. Tony Rodriguez studied the tactical display with growing concern. Captain, our defensive systems won't last 5 minutes against this kind of firepower. But maybe we don't need to fight them. What do you mean? Morrison asked. Look at their formation. It's perfect by their standards. Every ship is exactly where their tactical manuals say it should be. But that also makes them predictable. If we had to run, I think I could find a way through their lines. Kate Sullivan looked up from her communication station with urgent news. Captain, I'm intercepting communications between the Imperial fleets. They're discussing something called Protocol 7. From what I can understand, it's their standard procedure for eliminating species that might threaten the Empire. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. How long do we have? Morrison asked. The new fleet commander wants to meet with Admiral Korath first. After that, I think they'll give us one chance to surrender before they attack. Meanwhile, on Gaxler-S flagship, Admiral Korath tried to explain the situation to his superior. The massive alien warrior listened with growing impatience as Korath described the human technology and the potential for cooperation. Admiral, you have been contaminated by contact with these aliens, Gaxler declared. Protocol 7 exists for exactly this situation. We eliminate the threat before it can spread. Fleet Commander, with respect, I don't think the humans are a threat, Korath replied. They're explorers, not conquerors, and their technology could benefit the entire Empire. Gaxler-S 4 eyes glowed red with anger. That is exactly the kind of thinking that Protocol 7 is designed to prevent. No single species should have technology that rivals our own. If we allow them to live, they will eventually challenge our authority, but Korath had one more card to play. Fleet Commander, before you make your final decision, I request that you review the joint research data that Dr. Mordag has compiled. The data was impressive. In just 3 days of cooperation, human and Imperial scientists had made breakthroughs that could revolutionize galactic technology. The communication improvements alone would save the Empire billions of credits in equipment costs. Gaxler studied the reports with growing interest. As a military commander, he understood the value of superior technology. The human innovations could give the Empire significant advantages over their enemies. This is impressive, Gaxler admitted, but it also proves my point. If humans can achieve this much in 3 days, imagine what they could do in 3 years. They would become unstoppable. On Earth, the situation was reaching a crisis point. President Carter had been in emergency session with world leaders for 12 hours straight. The latest reports from the Liberty's Edge showed that humanity was facing possible extinction. Dr. Morgan, is there anything we can do to help our people? President Carter asked. Dr. Morgan looked exhausted. She had been analyzing every piece of data from the first contact, looking for something that might save humanity. Madam President, I think our best hope is to prove that we're more valuable as allies than as enemies. How do we do that? We send them everything. All our scientific knowledge, all our technological innovations, all our cultural achievements. We show them that destroying us would be the greatest waste in galactic history. General Henderson disagreed. With respect, Dr. Morgan, that would also give them everything they need to defend against us if we ever become a threat. General, we're one ship against 200. We're already defenseless. Our only weapon is our minds, and the only way to use that weapon is to share what we know. Back in the Kepler 442 system, the crisis reached its peak when Fleet Commander Gaxler gave Captain Morrison a final ultimatum. The humans had 1 hour to surrender their ship and submit to Imperial authority, or they would be destroyed. Captain Morrison made the most important decision of his life. Instead of surrendering or trying to fight, he chose a third option. He opened a communication channel to every ship in the Imperial fleet and began broadcasting everything. My name is Jake Morrison, captain of the Earth vessel Liberty's Edge, he announced. We are explorers from a planet called Earth, and we come in peace. But we understand that you see us as a threat. So we're going to show you who we really are. The broadcast that followed changed galactic history. Captain Morrison shared humanity's story, their struggles to survive on a dangerous planet, their gradual development of technology through trial and error, their dreams of finding other intelligent life among the stars. He showed them human art, music, literature, and science, but most importantly, he shared the joint research results that Dr. Campbell and Dr. Mordag had achieved together. He demonstrated how human creativity combined with imperial knowledge could solve problems that neither species could handle alone. We don't want to conquer your empire, Morrison concluded. We want to help it grow. We want to learn from you, and we want to share what we've learned. The universe is vast and full of wonders that none of us have discovered yet. We could explore it together. The response was immediate and unexpected. Dr. Mordag, broadcasting from his research station, supported Morrison's words with detailed scientific data. He showed how human innovations had already improved imperial technology in dozens of ways. Then something unprecedented happened. Other imperial scientists began joining the broadcast, sharing their own positive experiences with human cooperation. Junior officers spoke up about the creative solutions they had witnessed. Even some of Admiral Korath's crew added their voices. To the growing chorus, Fleet Commander Gaxler found himself facing something he had never encountered before, a rebellion of ideas. His own crews were arguing that the humans should be spared, not because they were weak, but because they were valuable. The final turning point came when young Lieutenant Carl Peters solved another navigation problem that had puzzled Imperial engineers for decades. His solution was so elegant and simple that every Imperial officer could understand it immediately. Fleet Commander, Admiral Korath said quietly, perhaps Protocol 7 is not the right answer this time. Gaxler studied the data one more time. The human ship was still surrounded by 200 Imperial warships, but the situation had completely changed. Instead of facing a military threat, the Empire was looking at the greatest scientific opportunity in its history. Stand down all weapons, Gaxler ordered. Admiral Korath, contact the Supreme Council. Tell them we have a new recommendation. 6 months later, the galaxy was a different place. The Liberty's Edge had been joined by 3 more human ships, bringing scientists, diplomats, and engineers to work with their Imperial counterparts. The joint research station orbiting Kepler 442b had become the most productive scientific facility in the galaxy. Captain Morrison, now serving as Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Empire, worked with Admiral Korath to establish the protocols for humanity's integration into galactic society. The process was slow and careful, but it was working. Dr. Campbell led a team of human and alien scientists who had made breakthrough after breakthrough. Their work had already revolutionized Imperial technology in 17 different fields. More importantly, their success had inspired other species to begin questioning their own assumptions about how things should be done. The Empire's rigid conformity was slowly giving way to a new era of innovation and creativity. Species that had followed the same patterns for millennia were beginning to experiment with new approaches. The galactic renaissance that resulted was beyond anything anyone had imagined. On Earth, the changes were equally dramatic. Access to galactic knowledge had accelerated human development by centuries. Cities now powered by Imperial fusion technology reached toward the stars. Universities taught courses in alien languages and cultures. Children grew up knowing that humanity was part of something much larger than one small planet, but perhaps the most important change was in how both humans and aliens thought about the future.